Okay, it's on. And so I'm just going to ask you some questions about your service.
Okay.
But first of all, what's your full name?
Harold L. Junkins, Junkins.
But I think everybody calls you Bud, right?
Bud. That's my, well, back when I was a boy there, my nickname was Buddy.
Okay.
Then they got to call me Bud.
And what's your birth date?
October 15th, 1925. I'm 94 years old, be 95 in October.
Okay. And where did you grow up?
That's hard to say. I didn't grow up, I was jerked up. I lived part of my early life in Morgan County, a little town named Falkville.
Okay.
And then my mother died, and then we lived in Coleman County. And then I went to live with my brother for a while. And then I finished high school at Martha Bear School for Boys in Rome, Georgia.
Okay. She's the namesake for Berry College.
Mm-hmm. And I went to Bear College one
Did you?
year, and I transferred to Jacksonville State.
Okay. Well, my wife and I went to visit Berry College just last fall. It's pretty.
You need to go to the high school, go up in the mountain school.
Really? Okay.
Oh, it's beautiful up there. All of them stone dormitories.
Oh, is that picture on the wall with the mill?
Yeah,
Is that from over there?
yeah.
We saw that. I thought I recognized it.
Okay, so you went up there.
Yeah. Yeah, we did see that.
I used to, when some other guys used to ride the spokes of that thing.
Did you?
And if they caught you riding the spokes of it, they'd give you extra time. You'd have to do some extra work up there. And so we tried to, one of the boys got in, he was riding up, and the headmaster drove up, and he got in the trough, the water trough,
Yeah.
and he got to running over. So he said, "Okay, I know you up there, come on out."
Yeah, funny.
So everything up there I can tell you the tale about.
I bet. We sure saw a lot of deer out there.
Yeah, I saw four deer right on the edge of the road. And they have a lot of peacocks up there on
Oh.
the campus.
Yeah, it's a pretty place. And I have a friend who, or my cousin's husband, played baseball there.
Hmm.
Uh,
They had a good ball place. They got a pretty good football team now. They didn't have a football team when I was there.
Okay. Yeah, so did you graduate from Jacksonville State?
Yes, I did.
You know, what kind of degree did you get?
Liberal arts degree.
Was that before World War II?
That was after World War II.
Okay. So tell me about when you entered the service and.
Well, I entered service in June of 1944, and they sent me to Camp Perry, Virginia, and then they shipped me to Seattle, and then to Tongue Point, Oregon, and we got boarded at the gauge that I had on.
Uh-huh.
And the first day out, I had never ridden on a ship. The first day out, we got in a storm, empty, and it broke 1,500 cups and saucers and dishes and stuff
Oh,
because
my.
they weren't secured.
Mm-hmm.
The piano got away, and this splintered on the deck. And every time he'd come by, we'd grab a pipe and throw up our legs. And it was on Thanksgiving Day.
Oh, wow.
And there was food and tables and stuff floating everywhere. And that piano parts floating around like.
Your first day at sea, huh?
And that was my interest the first day at sea.
Where were you sailing to?
We were going from Tongue Point, Oregon to Long Beach, California, to pick up ammunition.
Okay. So tell me again, what type of ship the Gauge was?
It was an APA. It's an attack transport. We carried 2,200 soldiers, and part of them would have to sleep in the bunks, and then they would sleep a while and then get up and let somebody else sleep in the same bunk.
Mm-hmm.
Then we carried all the equipment those soldiers had, Marines. We carried Marines, and they had that in our holds. And if we'd gotten hit, it'd blown us clean, no telling where.
Mm.
But we was an anchor that we served in Okinawa. We were in the Okinawa invasion, and we served as an emergency hospital ship.
Okay.
And the Jap hit the Hope. The Hope was a hospital ship.
Mm-hmm.
We was making smoke around our ship where they couldn't see us, and that Japanese dived into that hospital ship and killed 8 nurses.
Mm.
And we really loved everybody leaving us there by ourselves. And then we was there when the kamikazes come in. And those destroyers were knocking them out of there. I mean, they was falling like flies.
Wow.
There's kids flying them, and they'd already told them how
Yeah.
to.
So that was later in the war, and kind of their last resort.
Yeah, it was. It sure was. And
Can you describe you were a gunner.
I was a gunner's mate, and what I do was I help repair the guns. But in battle, I was a loader, first loader on a 40 millimeter.
Okay. Can you describe what it was like when the battle was going on, the guns were firing, and...
Oh, it sounded like the whole world was on fire. And the Salt Lake was anchored not far from us, and every time they would shoot those big guns, it would actually jar our ship.
Wow.
And so when the planes would come in, we didn't shoot. A 40 millimeter doesn't move fast enough,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to hit a fast moving
Yeah.
plane. And what we did was put up a blanket of fire and let him fry into it.
I see. With every gun you had.
With everything you had. And everybody else was what they had. And the thing about it, I was a 40 millimeter loader, and I was up above everybody. And those tracers going around, looked like there's nets, you know, and I loaded those tracers, and I knew every 5th one was a tracer.
Okay.
So they were 5 times thicker than I was seeing. I knew that.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking any minute, you know, I might get hit, but I never did get hit by one of them.
Hmm.
And believe it or not, when we went in, I tell you, the unsung heroes of that Navy was those minesweepers. They went in 3 days before we got there. And we met one of them as we was going in. And they didn't say nothing, we didn't say nothing. If he had lit a match, we would have blown him clean out of the water. I bet you there's no telling how many guns they had pointed at him. But you could see the ship going by. And it must have been one of ours because we didn't do nothing. But it could be real hairy when especially to somebody that's never. But we had fired those guns enough to where to us and to our mental ability, it was some more of what we'd known before, because we'd all fired our guns before, you know, knew what a gun sounded like going off. So it wasn't all that bad from our point of view.
It's hard to imagine, you know, let alone just the guns on your ship, but you got other ships around you and they're firing at the same time. Planes are flying and shooting, explosions going off. That's pretty intense, isn't it?
Yeah, and you could see the Japs shooting at our planes as they went over the island. And it was like a movie, really. And we had a 5-inch, the 5-inch had a telescope on it, and we was laying on top of each other watching those Marines fight over there on the island. You know?
Oh, wow.
And they had planned to take that airport the 3rd day, but they faked a landing on the other side. They moved all their guns over there, and we had that airport secured by noon. And those CBs up there and bulldozers running those bulldozers, and them fighting all around them. And
Wow.
you wouldn't even think they wasn't paying no attention to what was going on. They just run that bulldozer.
Was that on the first day?
Oh yeah. And they was getting it ready so our planes could land. But that was a crazy bunch of people.
Those on the island?
Yeah, the women would come up to those Marines with their dress up, trying to attract a Marine close to them, and then set off a hand grenade. So you had to shoot everything you saw. And you know, a kid can kill you just as dead as a grown up. And people, these senators, you know, talking about the way we treated the Koreans, you know, in some of the instances they had, you don't know who your enemy is. And they would die. They didn't mind dying. And they at night they'd charge and then scream while they were charging, so you wouldn't know how many were there. You make you think there was more of them than there were.
Wow.
But it's something that I will never forget, but I don't want to go through again.
Did you go to the islands, like when you were offloading supplies?
No, we had our boats. We had several boats. They were carrying that cargo to the island, and they did all that. So all
The Marines did.
We manned the guns.
Okay. Did your ship ever take any damage or significant damage?
No. We got in a storm and got damaged one time.
Another storm.
Yeah.
Typhoon?
It's typhoon and 60-foot waves. You could look up and see a ship up above you.
Oh my goodness. I can't imagine. Did you ever, could you handle the waves and the rocking, and did you ever get sick?
Yeah, but after you served in the Navy a while, that never happened.
Get used to it.
You just used to it.
Yeah, good.
And we knew every time I got in a storm what was going to eat is bologna sandwiches.
Bologna
And
sandwiches?
we called them,
Uh-oh.
we called them a different name, but
I bet I can guess.
yeah.
That's something easier to hold down in your stomach.
Yeah. And they always had plenty of coffee. And on some of those storms back then, we didn't have power steering. No storm, they'd have two men on a wheel. Cause that thing with the spokes on it. If it ever got loose, it'd break your arm if you tried to catch it. So they'd have two boys, two men on the wheel. And I said, that was most boring. I had to serve my time as wheel duty, you know, and that's about the most boring thing you ever did.
So you kind of rotate crew doing that, huh?
You had to serve your time at that. KP.
So you were at Okinawa, is that right? Or
Right.
Iwo Jima?
We was from New Guinea, Guadalcanal, Marshall Islands, Philippines, Tulagi, Mindoro, that was in the Philippines. Then we Okinawa and Japan, different, all up and down the coast. of
All
Japan.
the way, you followed the whole journey
Yeah,
to Japan.
and during, after the war, we would go to the different islands and pick up people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'd try to get those Japanese to surrender. Some of them did, and then a lot of them stayed on the island till they died. But they flew over the island with a not a B-17, but a B.
29?
29. No, it was
Or-
C-47.
Oh, okay.
Loudspeakers on them telling them the war was over. Please surrender and they'd not be harmed. Not many of them took them up on it.
You told me earlier, before filming, that you were at, or you visited Hiroshima. Is that right?
Yeah, we took the Marines in on Hiroshima. And that was not too far after they dropped that bomb, because they were still floating out in the bay there. It looked like they stick a pin in them and pop. Dead people.
Mm. Out in the water.
Yeah. And then on Nagasaki, they let us go ashore, and you could see where people was running. It just vaporized them right there.
Yeah. Just burned.
That's the most awful thing I've ever seen. I mean, they just melted cars right in the street.
So that never, you don't lose a memory like that, do you?
No, I don't. I have seen scenes on television in Nagasaki that my friend and I walked up to. That building they used it as a memorial. That was on the building standing. And my friend from Hamilton, Alabama, and we were gunners mates together, and we walked up to that building. And that was the only building left standing.
Wow.
And it was a hull. I mean, there was nothing in it, but it just a structure.
Yeah, I think that's probably, they've shown that on old newsreels and pictures too.
And I'll see on some of these, I watch, there's a station that I watch, sometimes they have war pictures, you know, invasions and stuff. And I see ships that we sail with. And the funny thing, there's one strange thing, they want to transfer me from my ship to PA 37, and that's another APA. And I was up for rank, and I told them I was up for rank, and they said, well, if you can find somebody with a clean record, we'll let them transfer in your place. Well, I knew where to go. I went to the deck force. Everybody's wanting off the deck force. And found a guy, and he transferred over there. And that was the only ship, only transport that got sunk.
Wow.
Kamikaze hit it, sunk it.
My goodness. So if you hadn't...
I don't know what happened. I don't know. Commodore Nolan was on it. That was his command ship, and I don't think they knew that he was on it, but they just picked that one out, and it was lucky that I got off of it, that it stayed off of it. So there's something that I don't want to ever go back through. And these people out in the street, it just breaks my heart to see people doing like they're doing.
Yeah, I understand. So how did the war wrap up from your perspective? What did you do at the end of the war and afterwards?
We were in Seattle, loading up to invade Japan, and then the war was over, and then we started unloading it, and so you had points. They'd give you points to get out, and I had my dad and stepmother on my list as dependents, and that gave me some more points. And I got out in San Francisco and got on a troop train to Memphis, and that a lot of we had some, their points came up in Japan. We made another trip after, we started a shuttle duty after the war was over.
Okay.
And then some of them got points, good enough points. And they got on one of these old Liberty ships to go back to the States, because they didn't want to have to do anything on their ship. So we passed them on our way to Saipan. They wanted to know where we was headed. We told them was headed to Norfolk, Virginia. We weren't going near Norfolk. We was headed for Saipan and to pick up a load of Japs, you know, and carry 'em home. So, but after the war, you had to watch out for mines, floating mines. And when you hit one, if I hadn't seen it, I was in a crow's nest watching, and they'd pop out of the water for about 2 seconds and go back under, kind of like a wash pot popped up, go back under. And I radioed the bridge over the speaker of my phone. I said, if you go left or right, you're gonna hit it. And we passed it, and as we'd go down, it would wash out. And as we'd come up, it'd wash back in. You know, they hit the ship, and that's the way we passed that mine.
Oh gosh, that's
And
close.
going into Manila, we passed the mine. We shot at it with a 5.8 and couldn't hit it. And the refrigerator ship was going out. We met them going out, and we told them about it, and they hit it and sunk.
Oh no.
So, but those mines is washing up on the beaches, cause they got in there and cut them loose.
Yeah, they'd either wash up or just out to sea, and
Yeah, they're just floating everywhere, and at night you just hope you didn't hit one.
you know, the war might be over, but the danger's still there.
There's a lot of ships hit them.
Goodness.
And they blow the whole fronting ship up. They were pretty powerful stuff. And we could see, it never got in the paper, but we could see these balloons going over. And way up there, barely see them. They're sending them over, floating them over to California to try to start fires and stuff over there.
Really?
But it's too high for us to shoot. They was up above 50,000 feet or better.
I never heard about that.
Yeah, and they did start some fires out in California, but they got them put out. But they never put it in the paper because they didn't want them to know they was doing any good.
Yeah. So you got on a troop train to go to Memphis, and then home from there, right?
Yeah.
What did you do after the war?
Well, I spent the summer in Birmingham, and then fall I went to Bear College.
And then Jacksonville State.
And then I went a whole year with at Berry, and then the Hoax. First year of college, I went to Berry, and then I transferred to Jacksonville State.
Okay.
That's a pretty good school now. They've improved it a lot since I was there.
Yeah. And so after you graduated, what did you?
Well, I went to. I wanted to get work in sales, but I went to work for EST. It was the only job I could find, and then I went to work for a cigarette company as a salesperson, and they hired me to go to all the supermarkets and medical conventions and around with a cigarette called Kent. I don't know if you ever heard of it or not.
Kent?
Kent.
I think so. Sounds
And
familiar.
and so then I heard of this job with an insurance company, and it was property and casualty, it wasn't life insurance. So I applied for the job and got it, And from then on, I finally went into business myself. JYC Insurance out in Center Point.
Had your own company?
Yeah,
Or-
our agency, we represented about 20 companies.
Oh, okay. Is that what you did until you retired?
Yeah, 38 years.
Okay.
And I
And
feel
so-
like I've earned the right to be here.
Oh, yeah.
Now when I retired, the computers were just getting popular. And our agency was one of the first companies to have a computer. And a lot of the companies were afraid of them. And then the fax machine came out. That was another big, nice improvement. And so things have improved a lot since I was first started in the business.
Tell me about your family. When did you meet your wife?
I was in college, and my brother lived in Atlanta, and he was married to a girl from Georgia. And I would go to Atlanta, and I'd write him to get me a date with somebody. I'd let him pick me out a date. So I went to Atlanta, and they had me a date with Danny. They had a big spaghetti supper up there, and I took her to the spaghetti supper, and I would have married her the next day. I really would have. And I got back and I told my brother, I said, I'm going to marry her. And I had dated a lot of girls in college. And so we dated a while, and about a year later we got married.
70 years ago.
Yep. And we've raised two fine boys, and both of them finished college, one at the University of Alabama and the other at the University of South Alabama.
Very good. Where do they live now?
One lives in South Carolina. He works for a company called Genentech. It's has to do your eyes.
Okay.
And then Kenneth, he worked for UPS his whole career, and he is an artist. And he does art on the side, and he's a very good artist, if he is my son. And he's retired from UPS, and they have an RV, and they own their vacation. They go touring the United States with it.
Nice.
That seems strange that your kid's 65 years old.
Oh, yes. Mine are in their 20s, and it doesn't seem like they should be.
Yeah, I tell you, next thing you know, you'll be going down the aisle with them if you hadn't done it
I
already.
did have once last year.
Yeah. Well, they married, our boys married good girls, and we're happy with them, and they love us. Seem like they're putting on a good show if they don't.
Okay, so how long have you lived here in
We've
Hueytown?
lived here about 50-something years.
Really? In the same house?
Yep.
Wow.
We added this on. This room cost more than we paid for the whole house.
Yeah.
See this,
Sounds
all this is insulated,
Yeah,
glass.
it's very nice.
and I've got it open where the air out, you know. But in the wintertime, I got one outlet right here. But
Okay.
my wife, back several years ago, she liked to keep flowers, you know, in the wintertime. And so, and never have I seen it below 45 degrees out here. So, it's good, a good, nice place to get and drink coffee
Yes.
and when it's not too hot like today.
And it's nice and shady backyard too.
I used to have me a nice garden up there in the back. On the right side of the lot up there, and we raised a lot of stuff, and we like to give it to our friends, you know.
Very good. Okay, I'm gonna